Welcome to Talking Industrial Automation, a podcast where you get to know the people who make modern industrial automation possible. You will get to hear from CSIA system integrators and industry partners to get a better understanding of how they help their clients solve process challenges and how they've earned success in their careers. Along the way, we will touch on system integration best practices, technology, trends, and challenges. Whether you are a manufacturer, end user, supplier, or system integrator, you will enjoy the insights these industry professionals bring to this podcast. Let's get started. Hi, my name is Lisa Richter, the host of Talking Industrial Automation, a podcast where you get to know the people who make modern industrial automation and processing possible. In today's episode, we're talking industrial automation with Shawn Tierney, who is owner of Insights in Automation. Shawn is a technology enthusiast and content creator of automation news and how-tos at theautomationblog.com, as well as publisher of affordable online courses with daily support at theautomationschool.com. He is also host of the Automation Podcast. Shawn's considerable experience includes serving as senior automation specialist for programmable controllers, HMI, SCADA, and MES products for Horizon Solutions in Albany, New York, and Holyoke, Massachusetts. Shawn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. It's an honor to be on your podcast, and I want to thank you for coming on mine a couple of months ago.
You're welcome. So let's start out with an easy one. Why did you choose a career in automation?
Well, I mean, that's a kind of a tricky question because I don't know, does anybody choose a career in automation? At least back in the 80s and 90s, most people didn't even know what automation was. So, I mean, today it's so ubiquitous with everything home automation and Alexa and Google. But really, I spent my teens programming. I was one of those kids growing up in the 70s and 80s in technology and the new computers, the Apple II, the 20. And when it came time to go to college, I chose to go for electronics because I wanted to build circuits, NPN, PNP, transistors, ICs, and all that. The people who hired me for a Rockwell Automation distributor tech support desk, they saw my history with programming and electronics, and it was a great fit. And I spent 25 years doing that. It was a great career helping people. I met countless engineers, been in countless facilities, helping people troubleshoot and teaching them how to do stuff. And just a very rewarding industry to get into because there's so many great people, smart people, but practical people in this industry.
So how do you describe to lay people what you do?
If you go back to 1990 when I got into this job, it was impossible. I gave up. You try to tell your family and friends what you're doing. I went over to the place and the conveyor wasn't working or the machine wasn't working. And their eyes glass over. Today, it's easy, though, because everybody has a high definition touchscreen that they carry around in their pocket. And if they don't do home automation, they've all heard of it, Alexa and Google, and they all have really promoted it, controlling your lights in your garage and your car from your phone. So people get it. They're like, well, duh, there has to be a high definition touchscreen on the side of a machine, and that machine has to have a computer in there controlling it, right? Because people aren't stamping things out by hand anymore. So it's so much easier today than it was back when I got started in 90.
So talk to me a little bit about Insights in Automation, how you began and how the company has evolved over the years.
I spent 25 years as a Rockwell authorized and certified distributor specialist. I get to meet all those great people and see all those great applications. But one recurring thing that kept coming up was that people needed reliable support, but they also needed reliable training. And it's difficult for an engineer or a technician or electrician to find a week to go out of town and $2,000 to go to a factory school. It was much worse back in the 90s, but still today, it's hard to find high quality training, right? A lot of these courses you go to, they're designed for the lowest common denominator. They want to make sure everybody gets trained. So they have to go at the pace that the the slowest student, which is understandable, but some people can go much faster. And then here's the thing, what happens, and I learned this over the last 30 some odd years, I've seen this. People go to the school, if they don't use it right away, if they don't use it a lot, they forget it. That's just human nature. That's why when I opened up the automation school, we had a successful Kickstarter back in 2014 for my first course, PLC Basics. All the courses, when you sign up, not only do you get support, if I teach the course, I support it personally with my 30 plus years experience, but it never expires. So if you can't remember how to set up RS Links or maybe TIA Portal, my newest course, you can just come back and take it over and over again. And that's great because people are busy and you can't expect them to absorb all of this material in one sitting. You just really can't.
So who teaches the teacher? I mean, you must have to keep up with everything that's going on in the industry. So how do you stay current?
Well, that's really kind of the secret behind why I have my own podcast, the Automation Podcast, because not working in my previous industry where I would go to the factory 2-3 times a year and get all up to speed on all the products. Now I really have to kind of hope that I can get vendors to come on the podcast and teach me about what they're doing. Ostensibly, I tell them that they're here to teach our 75,000 followers, but really they're teaching me as well. Whether it's Rockwell or Siemens or Mitsubishi or Phoenix Contact or some of these great vendors, Banner, they're not only jumping on the podcast, well, they're jumping on the podcast to tell the audience what's new, but that's how I get up to speed. That's how I get trained and learn about new things like the latest PLC or the latest HMI.
Yeah, so that's a real win-win. It's almost a closed loop environment you've got there, the education process.
We like to leverage that. So when we do work with a vendor, we like to turn it into training as well. So, we're working with Siemens a lot. So we did a Siemens training course to take that knowledge and the samples and put them to use to, so for $99, somebody can get up to speed on the S7, 1200, 1500 and don't have to worry about memorizing it because they'll have lifetime access.
What do you expect for your company in the next 12 to 24 months?
So part of developing the latest course I did, the one on the S7s, was also redesigning the curriculum. So our curriculum is different. It's based on what I saw for 30 plus years, in the field. And we really try to step through not only the physical products and how to program them, but common applications like motor control systems, how you integrate VFDs and photo eyes and, all these different things that you'll find in the field. So with the evolution of the third generation of my curriculum, I'm going to go back and actually redo my existing courses. Now, one of the things I love to tell my students is once you buy my course, you get the next version at no charge. So the people who bought, let's say, my PLC Basics course back in 2014, they're going to get the latest and greatest course I do on that topic. So we're going to take that third generation, we're going to apply it to all those, but we also want to release workbooks because we know a lot of people need to have something physical. They want something they can put on their shelf. And quite honestly, a lot of the effort in developing a course goes into the PowerPoints or the documentation. So it helps us recoup some of that investment, but also gives the student this hard copy. And on the blog, over at the Automation blog, we're doing the same thing. Just getting ready to release my first book there. It's called The Logix Book of Knowledge. And it basically compiles dozens and dozens of my ControlLogix articles from the last 10 years into a nice ebook for $9.99. We're also going to have it on Kindle, but initially it'll be sold at theautomationblog.com. This is something, so when you're offline and you can't get on the internet and you need to see, hey, how do I set up RS Links or how do I import a program, a duplicator wrong? They'll be able to have that ebook right there with them.
There's one thing I've learned about engineers over the years I've been working at CSA is that they like their manuals. They do like their manuals.
Yeah, we hope to have the Logix Book of Knowledge as a physical manual someday in the future, but we think for Rev 1, we kind of have to crowdsource the editing because you know how it is. You look at a document that's 250 pages long. After a few months, you stop just missing some of the common typos you might have caught earlier. So we're kind of crowdsourcing it as an ebook for $9.99, kind of an initial price. And then as it grows, the blog and the school, we try to work them in tandem. So as we go to release our really thick, detailed book on the ControlLogix on the school, that will tell us if we have any holes in the knowledge book at the blog. Is there anything we didn't cover or include in there that should be in there? They both kind of work in tandem. But we're excited about the new courses. We're excited about the workbooks and really excited about the new book of knowledge over at the blog.
Come closer, my little chickadees. I want to share a little known fact about CSIA membership. Are you ready? Here it is. This is the best time of year to join. Why? Because CSIA dues are prorated, which is just a fancy way of saying that when you sign up to become a CSIA member now, you will get the rest of this year and all of next year included in your membership dues. Plus, the same is true for any CSIA Industrial Automation Exchange upgrade or package. Of course, CSIA membership is value-packed no matter when you join, but it's kind of nice when you feel like you got a little something off the secret menu. You know what I mean? For more details, visit www.controlsys.org/shine. What are you waiting for? Let CSIA help you and your entire team achieve big things.
So one thing I've been noticing about small businesses, or any business really, you can't just do the thing you do. You also have to know how to be a digital marketer, right? You have to know how to create content. Like, you can't just have a product these days or be a Pilates instructor these days because it's a digital world out there. So talk to me a little bit about how you taught yourself to do all this stuff.
That's a great question. I still struggle with that. I'm always looking for great freelancers to hire to work on different things. We have a lot of people who write for us at the blog. We do freelance writing, and they just take their knowledge from the field and pour it into articles. We love those, and we pay those freelancers. Some of the other things, I find myself explaining how to design a website to people who do it for a living. I don't do it for a living. I'm an amateur. But it's that can-do attitude, that American can-do attitude. I remember my father, even though he's spent over 40 years as a master mechanic, he was building 2-story garages. He was putting up greenhouses. He was doing all kinds of things, refinishing homes and doing all kinds of things that you wouldn't expect a mechanic to do. And so, that's why in 2012, I felt comfortable building my entire office from scratch, including all the electrical and heating and everything, and, building the studio that we film in. I'm not an expert video editor. I'm not an expert audio editor. I'm not an expert web designer, but you got to have that American can-do attitude. And it's really a human. I'm an American, but if you're in England or you're Australia or somewhere else, it's the human can-do attitude, right? You can't be afraid of taking something on and trying to do it. But I am always looking for good freelancers. So anybody out there who's in digital marketing or in web design, you want to freelance, look me up.
That's super interesting that you've built a following of, did you say 75K?
The automation blog is about 30-some-odd-thousand unique visitors per month. That's kind of our core following there. That site relaunched in 2013. My previous site went back to 99, but that's our core following there. And then we have grown, I think, 36 or 37,000 on YouTube. That's kind of been a growth area for us as we do more hands-on on YouTube, less articles and more hands-on, at least I do. And then we have on LinkedIn, I think I have 14,000 followers. And we're slowly trying to increase the Insights and Automation brand and move some people over there so I can be less regimented and just kind of more of a techie on my own. We say about 75,000. We're seeing a huge growth in the podcasts, the audio edition. So I'm constantly reminding my guests to, make sure you describe what you're doing, what you're seeing on your slides, because, we'll have days where we have, 200, 300, 400 downloads just of the audio podcast, which is great. And we try to mix it up, to try to do software and hardware and sensors and buttons. So every week we're trying to change it up a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's just really impressive that you managed to build this audience because, that's influencers are doing every day right now, right? You're actually OG, original gang, right? What do you think the smartest decision your company has made recently?
It's a tough question. I think the smartest thing we did was go multi-vendor. So when I first left my old company, which was a great company, loved the people there, loved the company, loved my coworkers, were awesome. But, I spent too much time in the car and I wasn't able to help these people who needed training. So, I was Allen Bradley focused because that was my background, right? Since 1990, I've used everything PLC 5, 6500 and forward, right? But then I realized to really help people, we have to cover more than just one part of it, right? That part may be the heart of the system, but you have the fingers and the arms and the legs. You need to cover the sensors and the stuff that goes in the enclosure, the wireway and all that. So I think that was probably the best decision. Probably would have done that earlier if we would have came to mind. And I just love working with all these other vendors. I learned so much and they have such great product. Anybody who thinks innovation dead, you are wrong. These vendors, we have a lot of vendors in the industrial automation space and, product vendors, people who make pilot lights and PLCs and HMIs, and they are innovating every single day.
What kinds of trends and challenges are you seeing in industrial automation right now?
Well, I think the big one that's in everybody's mind is the supply chain. Unlike automotive, where, most of the big companies, they make the same car on multiple continents, right? And I think that's a great model. I don't think industrial automation isn't there yet. You don't see vendor X making their PLC or pilot light or relay on all continents or on the major continents, right? Probably no need for them on Antarctica, but that aside. And I think that's a challenge because now it's like I've seen vendors where they say, okay, we're not able to get the product line running there, so we're going to move it from continent C to continent A. I hope we see in the future where these vendors are saying, look, we try to make all the products on continent A, B, and C because we don't want to be at the mercy of a cargo ship sinking or a train derailing or something like that. So I think that's been the biggest challenge. The trend, I think, is towards openness. So as a lot of the really just brilliant people start retiring, right, from this industry, I think you're going to see more of a demand from the younger generation that they say, look, if I write a program for this controller, it needs to be able to be ported in some way, fashion to this other controller. I know I may lose some of the nice features Control A has, but all the basic IEC 611-3 code I write here has to be portable. And so I think the vendors have put a lot of effort into that. I just think the adoption from the users has lagged. And I think that's going to be a huge trend we see is portability of code. And I think, these users are going to challenge the vendors to get better at what they have been doing for a number of years.
In your opinion, what is the biggest challenge facing the automation marketplace today and maybe in the future?
Supply chain, we will nail that. I was hoping it would be nailed by now, but, some people are predicting another year or two before it's nailed. So once that's done, education, that's, my main business is education, whether it's how-to blogs or product news or actual training courses. I think education, people like myself and other people doing that will definitely bring that space forward to compete with and probably exceed what's done in other areas because this is a demanding industry. This is a very demanding industry, and we'd want to be the best at what we do, whether we're making the best widget, we're making the best whatever. I think most Americans think everything's made overseas, and they don't realize I visited plants for 25 years in the person, in the flesh, on every street almost in this country, not residential, but there are manufacturers making everything from light bulbs to pillows to, medical devices to injected molded parts. There's a lot of manufacturing in this country and in every country. And it's important that manufacture local. That's an important concept. I really think to get new people to come into this industry to be what we call automation engineers or controls engineers, or it's a specialty of the electrical engineer. I think we really need to start really talking more about what manufacturing is and what actually happens and how great it feels to see raw materials come into a factory and then leave the factory as some valuable product, right? It's a great feeling. And I think we got to promote manufacturing more. I think all countries need to promote local manufacturing more and show how it makes a big difference in people's lives.
Quick question. Are you a CSIA member? If so, I need you to do something for me. I need you to go to www.controlassist.org/account and follow the instructions there to set up your new CSIA account. It's literally as easy as changing your password. And it will ensure that you won't miss any member benefits, such as the upcoming virtual event with ITR Economics. So please, take 2 ticks and get this sorted. If you don't want to do it for you, do it for me. Because my boss said that if I don't get you on board, I will have to start cold calling. Ugh. Please, don't make me do that. And if you're not a CSIA member, what are you waiting for? Let's get this party started.
What makes you optimistic about the future of the automation industry?
Well, I'll tell you, having all these vendors on my podcast talking about products, we really try to focus on products on the podcast. Sometimes we'll have ISA on, and they'll talk like, security, cybersecurity, whatnot, but we typically focus about products. And I'm just excited because they're innovating so much. The thing is, everything has not been invented. Everything is not done. And just some of the new and innovative products, like we recently had Banner on, and some of the products they have, You just think you're looking for a 22 millimeter, pilot light, but just in that line, they have just so much innovation going on there. And that makes me excited, the things that all these different vendors are doing, what's coming in V18 of TIA Portal, what's coming in V35 of, Studio 5000. And just, I could go on with products. We've had so many great people on. We want to have more vendors on. We just had a new one on yesterday. So, I'm excited at the innovation. These companies, maybe not with every product and in every department, but across the industry, these companies are innovating, and there's exciting new products coming out all the time that makes our manufacturing and our control systems better and more efficient and more secure. That's what I'm excited about. I'm a technology enthusiast. I get excited about new technology, and there's a lot of new stuff coming down the pike.
Switching gears a little bit, let's talk about maybe a mistake that you made professional. I don't need to get into your messy social life, whatever that's got going on. And what did you learn from it?
Well, I just got to say, in case any of the families watching, I do not consider my 4 kids and 3 grandkids mistakes. They're all awesome. It's the one thing in life you can always say. Family is just awesome. They keep you going. They're the power behind you, But it's easy to make mistakes, especially when you're starting your own business, a lot of little things. I look back and I say, you're being penny wise and pound foolish, or, I'm trying to save a penny by not buying something, but that thing just made my life so much easier. You know what I'm saying? It even comes down to, I had this issue with my back and I was like having a lot of pain, and I'm like, what are you doing, Shawn? Buy a really nice chair. So I bought a really nice chair and my back pain went away in a couple of days. Things like that. It's like a lot of camera and media equipment's expensive. But I remember I bought, early on, I bought this really nice mic, and it's like, wow, all my issues with audio just went away because I spent a couple $100 on a really nice mic. And so I was brought up to be very conservative money-wise, like a real penny pincher, try to get away with doing everything with nothing. And I think some of the mistakes I've made, and I still see people in industry doing this, where they're like, we won't buy this guy a $50 training course. He'll just have to read a pile of books. Yeah, that's going to work really well. You're going to know when to invest. What investments are going to give you 10 times the return. So I think I would have probably been smarter about that, not being so much of a penny pincher early on.
If you had to choose a completely different career, what would you choose?
That's a good question. And really, there's 2 things that I'm also passionate about, not just automation. Being that 70s kid with the Apple II and the VIC-20 and Atari 2600, who can forget that, and the NES. I mean, I would probably be either in computing technology. So I still build my own computers to this day, right? So, I'm the guy who buys the motherboard, the video card, the power supply, and all the different pieces and parts and assembles it myself. And I taught all my kids to do that. So it'd either be something like a Linus Tech Tips type of thing, where I'm looking at the latest CPUs, GPUs, and motherboards and all that, and building systems and, reviewing stuff, or somewhere in the gaming. I joke around with people. I have the automation show, the automation podcast. I also have the gamers show, and I get together with some other engineers a couple nights a week, and we play video games. And so it would be one of those 2 things, either computers, because that's my childhood, right? That's kind of encapsulated all in one. It's my childhood, computers and video games.
What's the best advice you could give your younger self just getting started?
I think it's a realization that life is a journey of learning. Never stop learning, never stop reading, whether it's for professional development or for learning new things about your trade. I didn't like reading as a kid because all the books they gave me were horrible. The Grapes of Wrath, give me a break. 1984, burn that thing. I'm an avid reader, right? So I like, there are like sci-fi series out there that will just blow your mind and entertain you. And the same is true in our industry. You may think that everything out there is very dry, like reading, I don't know, the latest NEC guidelines or whatever, right? But there's not. There's something for everyone out there. There's new things coming out all the time, and there's all kinds of training you can take. So, if you're an electrician, there's things you can learn there. If you're a PLC guy, there's always new things coming out there, right? If you're into algorithms, you just have to search for them. But life is a journey, and be prepared for that, and find the type of learning curriculums that really address you as a person. Because some people, like other people, aren't going to be drawn to. So life is a journey. Continue, never stop learning.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Talking Industrial Automation. If you're interested in learning more about Shawn or his company, you can find him at www.insightsinautomation.com. Thanks for listening, and thank you, Shawn, for joining me today.
Thank you, Lisa. It was a blast.
If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also help others find us by leaving a 5-star review and sharing your favorite episodes with colleagues. Thanks for listening to the Talking Industrial Automation podcast. Thanks also to bensound.com and Wistia for the music bumpers. Until next time.